All right, the time has come for us to make the final video about weapons, and I'm going to base this discussion on my experience with these weapons and shooting various projectiles at 100 meters. So, what we have here is what I believe is going to be the two workhorses for the prepper. The first one is a 12.5-inch AR firing 5.56. This particular AR has a prism scope, 5-power prism scope, and it also has a D-ball laser on it. Now, I chose the D-ball because of its history, and I know what it does. I'm comfortable with it. That's why I chose it. I think this is a good combination because of the short barrel rifle and the fact that the short barrel rifle is a little bit lighter. So adding the D-ball to it is not that great big of a deal. Unfortunately, um, for the 12.5 and the 14.5, because of the short barrel, you are shortening your maximum effective range. I don't believe you should go shorter than 12.5. With the 55 grain, 5.56 or 2.23, the maximum effective range for this rifle is 300 yards. And you can get better action from your rifle if you upgrade the 62 grain FMJ. Now that may take you out to 400 meters, but you're kind of pushing it, right? You're kind of pushing it at that point. Now, what I mean by action is the projectile is going to do what it's designed to do. Because you're firing 2.23 or 5.56, it is a 22 caliber bullet, so the effect of the projectile striking a target is at its maximum based on velocity. So at 2,500 feet per second, it is the slowest the projectile can be going and still expect to get fragmentation and yaw or tumbling. So this is a great system right here. 14.5, 12.5 with the prism and a laser. I believe that makes a great night fighting combination. However, my go-to in a shit hit the fan situation would be the AR with the 16-inch barrel firing 5.56 or 2.23. Based on the testing I've done with these two rifles, we know that with the 16-inch barrel, the maximum effective range for a 55 grain projectile is going to be 400 yards. However, that's kind of pushing the envelope. At 400 meters, or excuse me, 400 yards, you are starting to break the 2,000 feet per second threshold. So it is better for you to move up to the 62 grain FMJ also for this rifle. However, you can shoot the 55 grain out to 400 yards with this rifle. Now, this rifle has an LPVO for targets at range at 300 and 400 meters or 300 and 400 yards. It also has a red dot for CQB, or in this case, if you would rather say all the way out to 200 yards. Okay, so 200 yards in the end, going to be using the red dot. Anything beyond that, I'm going to be using the LPVO. Now, as I said, I believe both of these are the workhorse for a shit hit the fan situation, and we're going to be talking about long range rifle next. All right, next we're going to talk about long range. My choice for long range is this C308 is based on the SETME design or the G3 design, and this is a very accurate rifle using standard ball ammunition, just about any standard ball ammunition you want to buy, even the cheap stuff. So it's very accurate out to 400 yards, just using the iron sights. I made this decision long ago that I was not going to purchase an 18 or a 20-inch AR firing 5.56 because I prefer the 308. So this is my long range gun. Um, Anything beyond 400 meters, 400 to 800 meters, this is my choice. So if I knew I was going to be going to surveil an area and I needed to be taking shots longer than 400 yards, then this is my choice. This is not something that I would always take with me. This is more of a home gun, home self-defense or home defense gun, because this gun is not set up to be used during a firefight. This is for long-range shooting only. And as you can see, I bought the modernization kit for the C308. I removed the original handguard and added the modernization handguard, the 3-rail handguard, and also a bipod and this scope. Now, this scope is not an LPVO. It is not an LPVO. This is a regular scope, a DMR scope for 308. And as I was saying, with this combination, this rifle, the C308, with an 18-inch barrel, it's very accurate out to 800 meters using a good scope for it. So this is my choice for long range if and when it becomes necessary. Now, the problem with this rifle, the way it's set up, is this rifle is not designed to be used during a firefight. So if I was going to be taking this on some type of surveillance mission, I would carry this rifle on my pack. And then everyone on the team would get 2 magazines with 308 or 7.62 NATO in the magazines. And this rifle and the magazines would be carried to the observation post and then set up to be used later. Now, considering that, you need to have a rifle to engage in firefights when it becomes necessary. And for me, I chose this 10.5-inch barrel AR in 300 blackout. It has a red dot on it and also 3-power magnifier. And with this combination, I can shoot out to 300 yards very easily. This combination has the same ballistic properties or is ballistically similar to firing 7.62 from an AK-47. So I would be carrying this during the patrol for firefights. These are the magazines I would have in my kit on my chest rig. And then for the 308, the C308, the extra magazines would be inside the packs because it would not be used in a firefight if it became necessary. So you can carry the 12.5, 5.56 AR instead of this, but I always suggest that you don't use a 10.5 AR, 10.5 inch barreled AR unless you're real close. CQB, 200 meters and in, right? That's what you would use that for. Okay, so the choice is yours. You're going to use what you have. This is just what I do, and hopefully you can get some good ideas for it. And there's going to be one more thing that we talk about here, and that's using the 16-inch barreled AR and this C308 in the support role. All right, next we're going to talk about using these weapon systems in the support role. And I'm going to talk about the weapons first, and then I'm going to define what the support role is. First, we have the 16-inch AR with the LPVO, and then we have the C308 with the DMR scope. Now, normally I'm not a fan of the green tip 5.56 because your target has to be close to get any kind of action out of it, even when firing it from a 16-inch barrel. However, in this role, in the support role, then I am a fan of that particular cartridge, the green 5.56 green tip, because of the steel penetrator. And in the support role, you will not be firing at individual targets, but you will be engaged in area denial. So the 5.56 green tip is a great choice from the 16-inch barrel in that role because of the steel penetrator. And the whole idea here is to deny a specific area so your team members can get out of the area if that's required, or if you're in a firefight and you want to keep their heads down. Now, in the support role, this would be a light support weapon. This would be a medium support weapon. Is you're looking through the scope on either weapon, you're looking through the scope at a certain area, not at individual targets, but at a certain area. And you're going to pull the trigger as fast as you can. And without allowing the weapon to come back to its normal resting spot after recoil. You're just going to pull the trigger as fast as you can. And what that does is it creates a cone of fire and a beaten zone. So here at the end, I'm going to put in a diagram of what the cone of fire looks like, what the beaten zone looks like. And the idea here is to deny a particular area because the projectiles being fired from these weapons as fast as they can land inside the beaten zone, but there's no predicting which each projectile is going to fall. It's just going to fall in that area. And it's a great way to suppress an area, keep people's heads down if your team needs to move in case of an emergency or for any other reason, as far as that goes, on the objective. So if you're going to be using these weapons, either this 308 or 5.56, it really doesn't matter which one. The main thing you need to keep in mind is you're looking through your scope at a particular area and you're pulling the trigger as fast as possible to create a beaten zone. Okay, so that's another role here for the long guns, and that should be part of your repertoire or knowledge base. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit more about the cone of fire and the beaten zone. This diagram represents the cone of fire and the beaten zone. Normally this is for automatic weapons because as the automatic weapon is firing, it is constantly moving. So each trajectory or each projectile has a different trajectory, creating a beaten zone when the projectiles strike the ground. Now, in this diagram, the beaten zone looks like a perfect circle, and that's just a representation. The beaten zone changes depending on your range to the target. However, this is why automatic weapons are considered area weapons. You can create the same effect with your semi-automatic AR or C308 or whatever weapon it may be by firing the weapon as fast as you can, by pulling the trigger as fast as you can. And each projectile will have its own trajectory because the weapon is still moving when the next projectile is fired. and it will create a beaten zone. In conclusion, I'd like to remind you that we're talking about concepts. I've shown you the weapon systems I've chosen with barrel lengths and cartridge combinations. However, these are not recommendations. They can be used as recommendations, but for a lot of preppers, they're just going to have to use what they have. And what you have is fine as long as you keep in mind certain things such as ballistics. Well, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.